Hey guys, welcome to another episode of Tech Talkin. I am kind of on the road and using a borrowed computer, so I left the house this morning to head over to the Jackson factory and left my computer, my mic, my headphones, green screen, everything behind. Got a call from the wife and realized I left it all behind, so please bear with me. My audio may be a little bit weird. I'm actually hanging out in the R&D room over here at the Jackson factory as they kind of start to slowly get back to it. Came over to check some things out. So as you can tell over this shoulder, there is a flex drive like cut in half. There's also some stuff I can't show you from like here down. So don't be trying to like figure out what's going on here. But I stole a desk and I borrowed a computer. So huge shout out to Bridget Howard for coming through in a pinch with a backup Mac for me to hook up to. And we got an awesome show ahead for you. We've got Glenn Young, who is the national sales manager for Z-Man Baits and a close friend of mine, going to help us walk us through kind of all the differences in the Chatterbaits coming up. I'm going to go real quick over here to the comments. Jean Wilson's on as always. She says I sound pretty good, so obviously so far we're working. What's up, Daniel? I'll pull Jean's comment up. She says I sound okay, so that's great. So let me know if something happens with the audio. Jim's comment, Daniel, what's up? Jim's on. Thanks for tuning in, Jim. No one wants to see you down there, Jameson. That's right. It's all secretive from there down. You got to keep it that way. Bridget to the rescue for sure. She definitely came through in a pinch this morning early. I left at like 4:30 and completely forgot everything I was doing. We're going to jump right into the show. For those of you that didn't know, yesterday we actually did a bonus episode. We had Scott Myers back on talking about sight casting for reds and specifically casting for them and looking for them in grassy areas and how to use Google Maps and different apps and stuff to help you find where to fish in the first place, but also to help you locate fish and how to get to them. But tonight's episode again, or this afternoon's episode again, we're talking chatterbaits. There's so many different versions. There are just, a lot of options. So what we wanted to do is kind of look at why are there so many different versions and when and where do they make sense? So I'm going to bring Glenn Young on right now with no further introduction. Glenn, how's it going, man? I appreciate you joining us. Uh-oh. Are you there? I might have lost you.
I got it now.
Okay. You froze. I didn't know if you were just like hanging out or you were just, actually there.
No, I'm actually here.
Oh, perfect. You're not just a picture of my imagination?
No, but just an awesome dream, really.
Well, we were talking earlier about beard products. Now, we weren't actually talking about beard products, but he did actually comb his beard as he was hanging out in the green room. I think he's got a little bit of catching up to do. But Glenn, I want you to introduce yourself to the audience here. I know I already introduced you as the Z-Man, the man from Z-Man. But give me a little bit of history about how long have you been at Z-Man and how long have you been in the fishing industry?
I've been at Z-Man for a little over 10 years now, about 10 and a half years. And prior to that, I was with Shakespeare for a couple of years. Before that, I ran Gamakatsu for 10 years. Before that, I was a full-time fishing guide. I was a rep. I was a fly fishing instructor, fly tyer, all that thing. I made most of my money in the fly fishing industry at the time, but I was living out in Oregon then. And
so you made a ton of money in that industry, I'm sure.
Yeah. It was just heartbreaking to have to leave all that money behind in the fly business. But yeah.
Drew's on and he says, what's up?
Hey, Drew.
Yeah, he's watching. I think he's the first time I've had Drew tune in, maybe. I haven't seen him. Thanks for watching, Drew. Gene says, hi, Glenn. Yeah, it was you. You brought him. And earlier you had your name up, and I don't see it now, but it said, it still does, Fish Rockstar. How did you get that name?
Oh, boy. So there is a little bit of a story behind that, and it really had to do with I used to have a background in the music industry and played in some bands, recorded some music, and I still play music, and I have an album that I actually recorded of all classic rock fishing parodies that I haven't had a chance to release yet, but it's really more of a charity product for veterans causes. But one of these days I'll get it released, and then I'll go on my big world tour and Maybe you can be one of my roadies, Jameson. You look.
I was gonna say, can we do a live release of at least one or two of the songs on Tech Talking in the future? We got to have.
Yeah, we can do that.
Well, it's funny because earlier, and now this kind of explains it. You were just like, I'm going to go get my condenser mic. And I'm like, who has a condenser mic just laying around their house? And you pull out this professional condenser mic. I'm like, I don't understand. But now it all's coming together. So you're actually a rock star and you occasionally catch fish. I've seen it in person.
Occasionally catch fish, yeah. Well, it was kind of like a hybrid between two things that I wasn't really that good at.
Yeah, well, I can vouch for you not being that good at the fishing part, but well, not inspiring confidence in your knowledge here. Josh Evans says, James Rating, come catch snakeheads with me when this nonsense chills. I would love to do that. I've actually never caught a snakehead. I've caught fish that are similar to bowfin or whatever, but I imagine they would slam a jackhammer and an OG chatterbait. But I want to get into this in a minute. Well, actually, we can kind of start diving into this right now. What can you share a little bit just about the background of the chatterbait when he says OG, the original chatterbait, just how that bait came to be in the first place? Like, who thought this up?
Well, it was Ron Davis that thought it up, and he's a South Carolina guy. He's in the upstate, and he and his son Ron Jr. worked on this for years with different designs, different incarnations of this bait. And there's a really fascinating documentary out there on the website 20 Feet Deep. And it's called The $1 Million Idea. And it's the story of how the chatterbait came to be. And it's a fantastic documentary. It has interviews with Ron and Ron Jr. And it talks about all the different incarnations of the chatterbait that led up to the original that really took off. And it's interviews with the pros that fished it. Like Brian Thrift, who really put the thing on the map when he won the event in Toho on that thing and just waxed everybody. And then soon thereafter, there were people trying to sell chatterbaits on eBay for $100. Kind of like where we are right now.
Yeah, I was gonna say we're not far off of that right now.
Yeah,
I'm posting this 20 Feet Deep documentary up in the comments here, just so people can check that out. I actually wouldn't mind watching that myself, but it is kind of a phenomenon. I mean, yeah, and it's
a really, really cool documentary.
I would love to check that out because I'm curious to what made them come up with that, kind of thought process. And the thing that gets me about the chatterbait in general is just how versatile it is and how you don't have to fish it. Like a lot of people just swim it, but you can work it as a jig. I do it a lot, red fishing, and we talked about this in my last couple episodes. I'll throw that diesel chatter, and we'll get into that in a second. But you're not like locked into fishing it a certain way. It's a very versatile platform.
Yeah, it's a very versatile platform. It's meant to actually combine a lot of things. So it combines the flash of a spinnerbait, the vibration of a crankbait, and then the profile of a jig. So you have all of those things all rolled into basically one lure. And so it has the versatility to do any of those things that any of those three baits would do.
Right.
So that's the kind of combination of it. So you can be, for a lot of people, it's just a straight chuck and wind lure. They don't do anything with it, throw it out, retrieve it back, and that's it. There's other guys that impart different actions to them. There's guys that throw them on the bottom, rip them off the bottom, and fish them a whole bunch of different ways. So there's no wrong way to fish it, honestly. There's a lot of different ways to fish a chatterbait.
So what made Z-Man kind of look at this bait and go, let's expand upon this bait and the way it fishes and the different techniques that can be done with it?
Well, it was really the success of the chatterbait that led us to wanting to expand it. And to come up with different designs, better designs, or just different actions, different profiles that we can create with that. And that's kind of what led us to. And we started with the original chatterbait, and then we expanded from there to all kinds of different, we're all considered bladed jigs now. But essentially, what it did is it created its own category. When the chatterbait came out, it created a category called bladed jigs. Before that, there wasn't a category for it, and now there is. And we wanted to continue to expand it. I mean, guys wanted different actions. They wanted different profiles. They wanted different weights to fish at different speeds or different depths, we have so many of them now. It comes down to everybody's got their own personal favorites, and everybody's got their little go-to, their comfort zone, their security blanket when it comes to a model of chatterbait.
You definitely know what mine is.
Yeah. I've seen it. Thank you.
He's joking. It's an inside thing where him and I fish
right now. When he really kind of drove the whole thing home when we were fishing last time, it was a really just a very nondescript pocket of water that he had thrown a couple other smaller baits through there. And he said, you know what? The heck with this. I'm going to throw the jackhammer. And he literally just threw a random cast to the back of that pocket and immediately picked up a fish out of there. So
Yeah.
there is something to it. It does work. But then again, that's Jameson's security blanket. When nothing else is working, he's going to pick up the jackhammer.
I do sleep with them every night. So I got a message. I don't know if there's a way you can turn your mic up, but one of the guys messaged me and said if you could turn it up or just hold it closer. We don't need to see your face. Just
No, I
what
can,
you're saying.
I can turn up the input a little bit there too if you need me to.
Yeah, if you don't mind, just a hair, we can keep it going there. That was just a quick message. Thanks for that, Josh.
Sure.
So let's start with that. And saying that was my security blanket, maybe it was, and maybe it's also that particular bait worked well in that particular situation when maybe another one of the chatterbaits. But that's the thing. You guys have what we counted like 10 different models of the chatterbait, and we can kind of get into those because they all are a little different. And that's really what I want to go through is how to select, which chatterbait is the right one in the right situation. I want to give a shout out to Camille real quick. She's always watching. And Camille, right? You remember Camille? Camille Knoll from, come on, you got to know her. She used to be one of the buyers down in Texas. And sorry, Camille, you're going to have to post the name of your shop because it's leaving me right now. But big Z-Man dealership down in Texas. But now she's one of the Jackson Kayak reps. So anyway, got sidetracked. Camille's on watching. Hey, Camille. So let's just start talking about the differences and when they make sense to throw what. And I have some that I can pull up. I know you actually have them in person that you can share on stream. Fish and Tackle Unlimited. Thank you, Camille. Sorry about that.
There it is.
It just left my mind for like 2 seconds, and I've been there several times.
So what I'll do is I'll kind of start at the kind of the low end and just kind of work up through the different models and the different sizes, because kind of set them out mostly kind of like in a price point order, and we'll kind of work our way through there. And so you kind of start with like a good, better, best type of a thing as we go forward. So what I'll start with though is the Chatterbait Flashback Mini. We've had this for a long bait. Basically, it's kind of like a little mini. You can see like a little crappie jig. We have it in 16th and 8th ounce sizes, and it comes with a little fish body on it. It also comes with a curly tail in there. But it's one of those little chatterbaits that you want to throw in little pond situations. It works great for trout and small streams. Just a very small profile, little tiny chatterbait. Really, really versatile. You can use it for a lot of different things, but it's a good little fish catcher. And when that little body is out, because this body is not actually made from elastic, this is actually just plastisol on this one. You can replace it with a small grub or anything else, once that wears out, and you've got a great little crappie, trout bait, anything, or just a little pond bait.
So your audio kind of cut out for me there for just a second. What is that? That's the mini, or it's smaller than the mini?
No, the Flashback Mini is what that one is. So this is the Flashback Mini here. There's the other body in it right there. Right. So the Flashback Mini is this little guy right here. So that's what we're looking at there.
Okay. I didn't have a picture of that one.
They retail for about like $2.99. That's the average retail price point for that. So it's just a inexpensive little chatterbait you can take kids out fishing with it. If they lose it, it's no big deal. If they lose a jackhammer, that's a big deal.
Yeah. And it comes with the trailer. Can you buy replacement trailers?
Once that little body wears out, what you can do is you can replace it with a small grub or a slim swim or any bait like that, or even like a Streak 375 or any of those smaller little Z-Man baits, or even just like I've thrown it with a cut off piece of finesse worm on it.
Okay. So that's a great bait for panfish, and obviously bass eat small, minnows as well. So, I think one of my largest bass actually came on a crappie minnow one time fishing. So they, elephants eat peanuts, they say, but obviously you don't see me throwing that a lot looking for, big fish. I think Drew kind of instilled in me, big baits, big fish, and power fishing. So let's see here. I'm supposed to turn my mic down a little bit. I could probably just talk quieter because I am wearing this earpiece. It'll help. Got to keep it on the high volume to hear Glenn. And I do have that voice that carries.
That moving announcer voice. I'll take the 5th color right now at 555 Jameson.
Well, and I'm getting used to these earpieces, so I will tone it down a little bit there. Thank you, Tyler, for that, because I do want this to live on as a podcast in the future, hopefully. So moving from that little guy, I've got a picture of probably the next step here, the mini. So it's a skirted chatterbait.
Right. Well, we have there's 2 different ways to go. So actually the next step up would be the micro. So the micro would be the next step up. So you would have this little guy right here, which is an 1/8 ounce model. That's the only size that we make it in, is in the 1/8 ounce. And this one we have in, like, I think 4 different colors now that we make this in. It's another good little pond bait, but I've actually had good luck with this, like on schooling fish and stuff too. Just out throwing it around, and all of a sudden you see a bunch of fish that are schooling, and you rip that guy through the middle of them. Works pretty well. And then you can move to the what we call the mini. This is the 1/4 ounce mini chatterbait. So they're actually 2 different profiles. One's a lot smaller than the other. And the chatterbait mini is supposed to be kind of like a downsized 1/4 ounce version of the original 3/8 ounce profile. So you have
your mic muted there, Glenn. I don't know if you can hear me, but I think your mic muted. We're having all kinds of fun difficulties today.
Here we go. So
yeah, much better.
So you've got these guys right here. So you have 2 different profiles. So you have the original, and then you have the micro. And the micro is meant to be, just as you can see, just kind of like a downsized profile of the original, but in a 1/4 ounce. So when you want a smaller profile than what the original is, and that's what that mini is for, that 1/4 ounce mini. So smaller.
Okay, so I mean, you kind of match the hatch. I guess you would look at what the bait fish sizes are, and then try to match accordingly to that.
Yeah.
So what would you recommend trailer wise for the mini?
So for the mini, I think the best trailers are things like the Streak 375 and the 3-inch Slim Swims. I think those are really good trailers for that. On the micro, what I've really done well with is like the 2.5-inch grubs that we make is a great trailer behind that one. And just because that tail extends out and really just provides a lot of extra action behind that small profile. I've done really up to the 1/4 ounce mini. That's really when I want the Slim Swim or the Streak 372, when I want a little bit more active tail action out of it.
Yeah.
Because the Slim Swims has that boot tail on it, so it digs immediately when there's any resistance at all. And so it really provides a lot more action behind that small profile than what you get out of just a straight tail.
Yeah, it's going to give you a little more thump, a little more vibration.
Oh, yeah. Yeah, it definitely does.
So Tyler's got a great question here, and I know I throw them, and I try to rinse off my different chatterbaits, and I throw obviously we'll get to it in a second. There's a diesel chatter that's kind of your, directed towards the saltwater market. But are they both, are the micro and the mini that we were just looking at, and even the original as we get into that, built for saltwater?
No, they're not. I mean, the components really aren't geared towards saltwater fish. They're not going to hold up very well in saltwater. We had a lot of guys that actually would use that flashback mini. We used to make it in a 3/16 ounce, and they would use that for speckled trout. But for the most part, it's really not recommended as a saltwater bait. It's just not going to hold up as well. I mean, you can catch some fish on it, but the components aren't going to hold up very well in saltwater.
Okay, so we'll move into that, and you can kind of, when we get to it, recommend what would work well in that saltwater situation. I know what I throw in saltwater, whether it's right or not. I know that as we move forward in some of these baits, I definitely throw several of them for reds. So we'll definitely get to that, Tyler. So that's a great question. Keep them coming. If you guys have any more questions or whatever, keep posting them. We'll definitely try to hit them. And sorry again that this is a little off with me, and I've got a new computer that I'm dealing with, and we're trying to figure it out. But we're going to get through this, and we got some great information for sure. So let's get into that original chatterbait. So you had the original, and then you went down.
So I have the original here. I took him out of the package so you can kind of see it. And this is kind of what really set everything in motion was this guy. So I'll figure this out, this camera angle here. But this is the original chatterbait. And what makes this thing unique, and this is a patented product, it has the blade directly connected to the head. Okay, it's a direct blade to eye connection. And the idea behind this is that so that when it's vibrating, this blade is making contact with the head to provide extra vibration. So that's what that was meant to do. Then we've upgraded these things over the years. The originals didn't used to come with a trailer keeper, but they do now. We added that trailer keeper as kind of an inline change to this whole thing. But what you'll see on the original is actually that was the Elite I was just showing you. Look at the wrong package.
But the Elite and the original are very similar. You just got some upgrades. I'll pull this picture up of the original.
So there's the original. I have the exact same one in my hand right here. So with the original one right here, what we have is you have the blade close to the head to make contact. You have what we call the easy skirt, which is a hubbed skirt, and we sell replacements for these. So you can take these on and off, change the colors out, or just not even fish it if you don't want to. Some guys will just fish them straight with a trailer without a skirt on it, but you can take that skirt off. And then you've got the trailer keeper right here. There's the direct connection there with the eye and the Chatterbait blade. And then what we did is over the years, one of the other things that we changed is we changed the line tie on these, and we changed it to a fast attach clip because we found that this type of a clip connection is stronger than what the original clips were. So we went to this clip for all of our chatterbaits with the exception of the jackhammer, which we'll get into later and why that isn't. But we went to that line tie just because it was a more secure connection than what the other ones, far more reliable. When we decided to make that switch, we actually took these down to Venice, Louisiana, and tested them on bull reds for a week to see if we can get any of them to open up, and we couldn't get a single one to fail. So that gave us enough confidence that if we could use those things on bull reds, I should hold up to a couple of pond bass okay.
So as we move into the original, then you think that would be a pretty good lure to be able to use. And I know a lot of people use these in saltwater, so you're moving up in strength. If a bull red can slam it and fight, then you're probably going to be okay to use that for some.
But the only thing is you got to remember is that this hook is not really made for heavy duty fish, though. I mean, it's not a super heavy gauge hook. It's a relatively light wire hook. So component wise, that's not going to rust super fast, but we have chatterbaits that we'll get into that I think would be better set for saltwater use. I mean, you can do some slot size reds and stuff on this. It's going to hold up fine, but I wouldn't want to chance it on a bull. We have products that we make for a bull red. So that's something I would keep in mind is that really wasn't designed for, this thing other than really always changed over the years. Otherwise, this is the original Ron Davis designed chatterbait. And it still works every day. Believe it or not, it is true, actually, Jameson. It does work sometimes.
I believe it. I've caught fish on the original chatterbait. When we're getting into that, when we get into that bait, I think as we get into more of the different chatterbaits, there's definitely like certain ones that do better in grass or certain ones that do better when you're wanting to dig and hunt around rocks and that kind of thing.
Yep.
Would you say that the original is just kind of that do-it-all kind of workhorse in the lineup?
It really is, and it's it's a good price point item. I mean, it's like a $4.99 retail on there, and it's one of those ones that's really good for open water or grass. I mean, grass is one of those areas where chatterbaits really excel. They come through grass really, really well. That was one of the primary designs and things that Ron Davis was looking for, something to fish in the grass that would work effectively. And so initially when this bait first came out, it was seen as kind of a seasonal lure where it was just used when in the early spring when the grass was coming up and all the fish were in the grass, and that's when they would throw the chatterbait. Of course, now it's used year round and of course in all different situations. But originally it was seen as a very effective grass lure. And that's still what it's known for too. When guys are going out tournaments on grass lakes, they're all going to be throwing a chatterbait of some kind because it's just made for that kind of fishing.
Yeah.
So yeah, I mean, it's a workhorse, but if I were going to be in timber or rocks and there's other models, then I'm going to choose to fish those.
Yeah. So Joshua was saying that he was going to ask about the, moving into the hook keeper or not the hook keeper, but the tie, the connection. That the old style he felt like was a little more responsive, and so as we get into the jackhammer, you can touch on that and we can kind of answer that, Josh.
Yeah, there actually is something to that. That's one of the reasons that, and we'll get into that in the jackhammer discussion. But when Brett Hite designed that jackhammer, that's the clip he wanted because of like what Joshua said. It is responsive. They like the feel of that better. and the vibration that they get off of it better than what they were getting off of like those fast hatch clips. They just thought that the vibration was better, the action was better on
Yeah.
that clip.
So the next question here from Rich, he's specifically asking about the Elite Chatterbait, but I think this would probably could spill over into all of them. We can go ahead and start talking about the differences in the Elite and the original as we get into that.
Here, yeah.
The one you showed a minute ago.
Yeah, yeah, the one I showed a minute ago. Yep.
But he's asking about line
to use on this. Now, one of the things that we did with the Elite, though, just one of the reasons that it is a little bit more high grade, that's a 5/0 Gamakatsu hook on there. It's got a trailer keeper. This one has a hand-tied skirt on it, just like the jackhammer does. And one of the other things that's different about this is how close the blade is to the eye. So it's right up here close. And the head is made to be a little bit flatter and wider than the original, so that the blade makes more contact with it to tighten up the wobble and tighten up the vibration. So it's going to have a different feel to it than what the original does. That's one of the differences in that. And then, of course, with the hand-tied skirt, you've got a different profile on there as well. And then we use the fast hatch clip too here for the line tie. As far as the type of line that I would use on that, Rich, I think it's personal preference. Most of the tournament guys are throwing straight braid on these. They're not using leaders or anything. They're throwing straight braid because when you think about it, you're fishing a pretty good profile reaction bait. So you're not as likely to spook fish with visible line, or heavy leaders as you might, in clear water or a smaller profile bait that's going to get noticed more. This thing's making so much noise and moving through the water fast enough that, your line usually isn't going to get noticed. So a lot of the guys that are throwing these are throwing them on straight braid, usually 30 pound or more. Personally, I prefer to throw a fluorocarbon leader when I fish. It's just a comfort factor for me. So I'm usually using 30 pound braid and use 20 pound leader if I'm throwing a chatterbait, and really ripping it through the water. I usually try not to go down below 15 if I'm doing that because, your chatterbait fishing is really, it's a power fishery. You're not looking to finesse anything. You're power fishing. So that's really the main thing to keep in mind. So you don't have to go light line. You don't have to go super fine leaders or anything. If you just want to rip it through grass with heavy braided line, go for it. That's what it's designed to do.
So for me, I kind of agree with you on your setup. I'm a leader guy. I pretty much tie a leader. Almost every technique I fish is braid, but with a fluorocarbon or even a monofilament leader.
Yeah, that's the way I've been doing it for years.
Yeah. And it's why change what works? I think one of the things is you get a little bit stiffer.
I mean, it's what you're comfortable doing.
When you're casting all day, it kind of prevents that braid from wrapping around. But also there is an occasional time, especially with sight fishing reds, where I will just drop that chatterbait on them and work it almost like a spoon with a jig attached to it, and just kind of bounce it in front of them. So, in that particular presentation, I really like having the leader. But that kind of gets into also for me rod setup with my chatterbaits, especially anything when I'm fishing rivers and I'm getting into the 1/2 ounce sizes and up sometimes. I like a rod that's a little more forgiving, almost like a crankbait style rod with more of a moderate action so that the bend is more through the rod.
I mean, a lot of guys go to that crankbait style rod because they want that rod to really just to load when that fish takes it. They want it to load up when that thing takes it, because a lot of times if the action is too fast, especially when you're dealing with a moving reaction bait, if that rod's too stiff and there's not enough forgiveness on that take, a lot of times you're going to pull it right out of their mouths before they have a chance to really get it. But sometimes with a more forgiving rod or a little bit softer action, when they do finally grab that and that rod loads, now they've got it, and then you've got a better opportunity for a hook set.
Yeah, and I think that
feel better too on those soft action rods.
Well, and also I think, it may be because of the hook set, but when they're jumping like a smallmouth that's flying out of the water, I feel like it could be from not getting a good hook set, or it could just be from the, the rod just ripping the bait out of their mouth. I don't know, but I do know that when I fish that more moderate action rod especially with a 1/2 ounce or plus size chatterbait, I'm going to lose more fish if I don't have that moderate forgiveness in the rod. And even in a kayak, your kayak's going to move a little bit more than a boat. So I imagine it would be even more important fishing from a bass boat where the boat's not forgiving at all. It's all going to be up to the rod and to the line setup. Before we go,
we're using glass rods for
Yeah, there you go.
throwing chatterbaits because of that. They liked the glass rod a lot better than some of the stiffer graphite rods just for that reason.
Yeah, and that's kind of my setup. I've got it starts out glass and transitions into graphite as it goes down the blank. It's the Rain Shadow Judge blank up there from Washington, where you used to live, is where they build this. So here's a quick question before I miss it there. Drew Smith says, why did the Chatterstick get discontinued? This debate, I don't even know if I know about this bait.
Oh my God, I wish I had one sitting here. Oh, I'm tempted to. No, it's not. I think there's one at the office. That was it was kind of what the Chatterstick was, Jameson. It was, if you picture your traditional, like, jerk bait style body with a little diving lip on it. Instead of the diving lip, it had a chatterbait blade up on top, and then like 3 sets of treble hooks behind it. I mean, it was a unique idea, and it did actually catch some fish, but it's like any other product line. I mean, if it's just not selling, you don't want to keep it around.
Right.
And honestly, it just didn't sell as well as the other models did, and that's why we discontinued it. So yeah, Drew, you've got 3 in your tackle box. You better hang on to them, buddy.
He's kind of like me and the Z-Man crabs. You know how I was with those baits.
Oh,
and,
exactly. Yeah. Well, that's why we discontinued them.
But yeah, because I like
how much you loved them.
Yeah. Well, I hate jackhammers. I just despise them. I don't ever want to see another.
So, Drew, if I were you, what I would do is I would switch everything over to 80-pound braid or better if you're going to throw that lure, so you can.
There you go. Yeah. Hey, that might be a tournament winner for Drew there. A little secret sauce, if you will. So when we're talking about the elite, I've been told that in this crisis of not having access to jackhammers, a lot of places are sold out, that the elite is also a favorite of a lot of the pros. I think actually Brian Latimer, that's his favorite. I think I've seen a video of him talking about it. So it has a very similar hunting action and that kind of thing. So if you're looking for a good option, maybe priced a little bit lower, would you say that would be kind of the next go-to bait for?
Yeah, I would, because you look at the fact that it has, we're looking at the fact that it's got the hand-tied skirt on it. It's got a similar profile to the jackhammer. It's got the Gamakatsu hook. It's got all high-end components, painted heads. I mean, skirts match the head pattern, everything. I mean, it's a pretty elaborate bait. And as far as components go, component for component, it's just as good as what's on the jackhammer. So the action's going to be slightly different, but you're looking at paying $7.99, for it instead of, $15.99. So you're able to save a little bit of money.
Well, right now it's like $50 on eBay, so you're saving a lot of money. I like it.
Yeah, I mean, it doesn't have eyes on it, It doesn't have the weight painted on the bottom like the jackhammer does. I mean, you can see right there the head shape difference. I mean, it's very flat on the bottom.
Yeah.
So it's going to have a different action than what the jackhammer does, but similar to the jackhammer, the blade's very tight to the eye. And it tightens up that wobble and that vibration so that you can get it to hunt a little bit more. So it's a completely different vibration than what you're going to get out of some of the originals or things that have a little bit more wider range of movement with the blade.
Yeah, I've got some on order for sure. I'm excited to put them to the test. I know I fished the original, and I fished the probably next one we'll take a look at here is probably the Project Z, but I fished it a lot, and obviously the jackhammer. So I'm excited to get the elite in the box and find that right spot and right place to be able to throw that. So
personal best came on that elite, and it was 22 inches out of the broad. So I've got.
Well, there's nothing. Hey, we don't talk about that river. So we got a question here from Nick: custom versus elite.
Custom versus the elite, 2 different actions. Again, I think probably the custom has a head shape that's probably closer to what the jackhammer is actually. And there are different schools of thought, but there's a lot of guys that actually prefer the custom over the elite, or they prefer the custom over the jackhammer sometimes too. They feel that the action is just different enough on those that they have a little bit more confidence in it. But again, the custom doesn't have the elaborate paint jobs or anything that the jackhammer does. Which, I mean, honestly, I don't know how much of that paint work actually gets seen on a jackhammer by a fish when they're coming behind it 100 miles an hour. But
yeah, and when you're moving, a lot of that is like you said. I mean, I'm sure it's for the angler as much as it is for the fish because it looks nice and it but you do get those confidence baits For me, with sight fishing, it's the crab I talked about, or the different colors that become your confidence bait, and the jackhammer has become a confidence bait for me. But I know the other ones work. I've seen them work, and I know that they will work. As we move forward, the next picture I have to bring up is the let's see here, the Project Z, and it's a bait that I've thrown quite a bit. I've caught a lot of fish on it as well. But you want to jump on in with the differences there, and I know that I've heard people saying that this is a better bait in the grass as far as the jackhammer, or as far as the chatterbait lineup goes. Would you agree with that?
I would. I do. I would believe in that because of the fact that the blade is further up in front than what it is on the other ones. I have one here. I'll get out of the package for you, so you can see what I'm talking about. When you look at the picture that's up there right now, you'll see that the blade is not really close to the head at all, and it's actually out in front of it. The head shape is more like a traditional swim jig head shape. That's to be more streamlined so that it does come through the grass pretty well. And with the blade out front a little bit more, it tends to come through the grass a little bit better. But the thing with the Project Z, and I think the reason so many people like this, and personally, it's one of my favorites as well. I probably fish this one more than the other ones, is the fact that with some chatterbaits, with anybody who's ever fished enough of them, that every once in a while you may have to, give it a little bit of a pull to get it going at first. You may have to just give it a quick pop to get the blade going. I've never, ever had to do that with a Project Z. That blade is always moving, and it's got so much freedom to move. There's nothing ever to hinder that thing at all. So it vibrates the second that my line goes tight. I've got immediate vibration. And also because the blade is so far in front of the eye out here, you can see how much wider your range of movement is with that blade. So you've got a lot more blade action out here in front of this bait here than what you get out of some of the other ones that are tight to the head and only can wobble this far. This one can go a lot farther, throw a lot more flash, and create a different vibration than what the other ones do. And as far as the components go, it's going to be hard to beat the components on that, because you've got, on this guy right here, you have the really elaborate paint job with the 3D eyes. You've got the heavy duty wire form right here. You've got the fast hatch line clip right there for tying it on. The skirt that we use is a double umbrella skirt, so you kind of get that double umbrella profile out of that, which is really nice. And the keepers on here, you have 2 barbed keepers on here, so that really helps hold your trailer on there well, those 2 keepers there. And this hook back here, this is a 5-aught heavy duty Mustad Ultra Point back here. So this whole for business, this is a heavy duty, very high quality component chatterbait right there.
I've definitely thrown that chatterbait for redfish, and I've never had an issue with the hook bending or any of those issues at all.
Yeah. Right. Yeah. This is designed to handle some big fish if you want to throw it at them. I mean, there's a lot of serious weaponry on that guy. What's
the heaviest option there on that bait?
We have a 1 ounce version of that.
Okay.
So
that's what I was thinking.
We go 3/8, half, we go 3/4, and 1 ounce. So, if you really want to rip that thing down there a lot deeper, or ledge fish it or anything like that, you have that option. And we've actually sold quite a few of them to the guys out on the West Coast who like to throw them out there for spotties and stuff like that, and throw them off of the jetties and work them in those deeper waters out there.
I've actually used the 1 ounce version of that bait when I've got schooled up bull reds in like the bay down in Pensacola and the Gulf, be able to let it sink a little bit quicker and get it in front of them. And I've also jigged it, just vertical jigged it straight up and down out on the West Coast and caught lean cod and black rockfish and just all kinds of different rockfish jigging that bait. And it would be a great calico bass, which is a very versatile lure, a little bit thicker profile. But what I noticed, and it's probably because you have the freedom on that blade, but it feels like a tighter vibration, or a quicker vibration, I should say.
Because it's immediate. I mean, it's second your line's tight, the blade's moving. There's no working it or having to make it move. It has so much freedom of movement. The second your line goes tight, there's any resistance whatsoever, that blade's immediately kicking into action.
So a lot of times I put the Razor Shad as the trailer there, and I think that was kind of a design trailer for chatterbaits. What else would you recommend as a great option?
I'll actually go into that right now. What I can do too is I can back up a second here, and I can cover that saltwater one real quick. I've got a diesel chatterbait with me here that I can show you.
I got a picture of that as well.
Yeah, I'm going to take this skirt off of this Project.
Don't take your skirt off. No one wants to see that.
So, so what we have is we have the Chatterbait diesel. So the diesel Chatterbait was designed for saltwater use. This is one that we wanted to make so that we had something for the redfish. So when you get it, it comes in the package with the head and it comes with the bait. And so it comes with a diesel minnow. And the head on this guy is it's a different shape. It's not, meant to be the flat, hammerhead style. You've got a lot of range of movement here with that blade, and you want it throwing a lot of light and vibration. I mean, it's, made to fish the muddy Louisiana waters for the most part. So you want a lot of flash and vibration out of that. And then for the keepers, what we put on there is you can kind of see those pretty serious keepers on there. So once you put a bait on those keepers, it's not going anywhere. And then we used a heavy duty Mustad Ultra Point for the hook on that as well. So this whole thing was designed to fish in saltwater. And so once you get this thing rigged up with a diesel minnow, I mean, it's ready to go, and it's going to stay together and stay hooked up for a long time. That trailer's not going to go anywhere at all. So that's the diesel Chatterbait. And so that's what we designed for saltwater, for redfish and things like that. So when you're looking for one for saltwater use, something that's going to hold up in saltwater, this is the one you want to go with. Definitely. You want to look for that diesel Chatterbait. So that's what it's designed for.
I keep one of these tied on. We talked about this in the sight fishing for reds video a little bit the last couple of episodes. And I keep one of these tied on pretty much all the time when I'm red fishing, because if it gets to the conditions where you need that search bait, or you saw a fish, they're in the area, but you don't have sight or have eyes on them, you can cast that bait in there and it'll draw them in. It's got the flash, the thump, the vibration. It's a great way to search and just find fish. It works really well for me with redfish on a wind blown bank. Say the wind's blowing all the bait up against the grass line. I can just go down through there and hit points and hit little pockets in the grass, and it's worked for me pretty much in every state. I've got friends that live in Florida, and they're like, they won't eat that here. Yes, they will. They'll eat it. They'll eat it all everywhere. They will eat it.
Like, you ain't from around here, boy. This fish ain't gonna eat that.
Yeah, don't throw that. Watch and learn, guys. Watch and learn.
I think that would be fine. So this is another way that I love to fish the Project Z, is with the razor shed on it and no skirt. So this little profile right here, I mean, this looks fantastic in the water. You bring this through, and I mean, it's a good way to kind of slim down the profile. Sometimes I don't want that bulky skirt on there. I want to slim it down and just throw a shad body of some kind, some type of a bait fish. And when I want that profile, I go to the Project Z, I take the skirt off and I put a razor shad on. And that's how I throw it. And it's been very, very successful for me. And then along this is the weedless. So we take that same Project Z, but we do it with a weed guard on there so that you can throw it around brush. You can throw it through timber and all that kind of stuff without it hanging up. And I'm telling you, you can't hang it up. I've tried. And it's darn near impossible to hang this thing up. That brush guard really does a great job of keeping that thing weedless. Because when we first introduced this, what I did is I took it to the California Delta, and I was there for a week fishing with some dealers. And so the first dealer I had set up with one of these, he asked me what it was. I said, that's our new Chatterbait. I said, it's Project Z weedless. And he says, weedless, huh? I could tell by that look in his eye, he was going to be that guy. So he said, weedless, huh? I said, yeah. And so he took it and he threw it as far into the tules as he possibly could. There wasn't even water there. He just threw it into the tules as far as he could. And he gives me that look. He goes, all right, we'll see if it's weedless. I'm just shaking my head like, who does this? And it came through. So he brought it down. He goes, okay, I guess it's weedless. I was like, well, yeah, I guess so. But that was so unnecessary,
Do you trim the weed guard at all to your liking? And a lot of guys
I don't on that one. I don't find that I need to. That weed guard on there it's soft enough that it gets out of the way. I mean, I really haven't had any hookup issues with that weed guard, so I've really never felt the need to trim it. I know most jigs, people try to trim them and, they try to get them, even with the hook and all that, but it's not something that I've really ever felt the need to do because this is plenty soft enough. It gets out of the way. So I really haven't had any hookup issues with that weedless version at all. It's been very effective for me. So literally grass, timber, anything.
So to kind of recap the Project Z, if you're looking in your Chatterbait box and you're looking at your conditions, you would say if it's thicker grass, that's going to be a good one for you. If you want a little tighter, faster vibration and a little bit more flash, but maybe the bait's more streamlined behind the blade, that's kind of the go-to setup there. And so for me, when I'm fishing rivers specifically, I kind of do it like I would a crankbait. I want that bait to be in contact with things that are maybe protruding off the bottom, whether it's a rock or a log or whatever, but I don't want it digging the bottom the whole time. I just want it to hit stuff and divert off of that. So I kind of choose the weight accordingly. Is that what you would recommend as well? Or do you kind of want that bait swimming, as far as the Project Z goes, do you want that bait more swimming in the column, in the water column?
No, I mean, if I'm in a river situation, if I've got current, I'll step it up to the 1/2 ounce version. I'll throw the 3/8, and if I don't have current or anything, and I can control my depth a lot better with the 3/8 ounce when there's no current. But when I have current around, that's when I really have to go to that 1/2 ounce, because I do want it to stay down, and I'm kind of like you, and I do want it to deflect off of things. When you're in a river environment, you have fish that are in ambush mode. So they're sitting behind rocks, or they're sitting near, feeding lanes and things like that, and seam lines. And when you're bringing something through those seam lines or through those feeding lanes, if you get something that bounces off a rock they happen to be sitting behind or near, I think it gets their attention a lot quicker.
Right.
So so I tend to step up the weight just a little bit on that one.
Yeah, that's kind of me. And even if I'm fishing like around riprap or something where I know there's structure, I'm always kind of wanting to like test the limitations of, can I get this bait hung up? It's like, right. I don't want to get it hung up, but I definitely want it to come in contact, because that erratic deflective kind of action, a lot of times I think triggers the bite. And I think that's a cool thing about, the chatterbait, is that you can fish it around those things and kind of bounce it around and in and get it through those things. Mark here says the jackhammer rules, and I think that's kind of, I'm gonna leave that up, but that's kind of where we're leading into next, right? It's time to talk jackhammer.
Yeah. There is one more before that in price point, but I'll save that one for last, because that's our newest one.
Oh, I've got that one to pull up as well.
So what I'll do is I'll go into this is the jackhammer here. So probably the most often asked questions that we get about the jackhammer, and this is a great image of it here, because now you really get to see the details on this. You can see the 2 wire trailer keepers on there. The hook that's on the jackhammer is a Gamakatsu flipping hook. You can see the elaborate head designs that they put on these things, the paint jobs, the 3D eyes. You can also see that blade, and here's the differences. This is a different blade. It's an actual heavier blade than what's on some of the other chatterbaits, which is another reason why it has a different vibration and a different action, because the blade is actually heavier, and that does make a difference. And then you can see the line tie is the decoy egg snap, and it's always, why is this thing so expensive? Well, there's several reasons. One, the components, for one, these are expensive components. That egg snap's $1 by itself. I mean, there's a lot of expensive components on there. Think about the paint job, the hand tied skirt. There's a lot of work that goes into it. Plus the fact that we get this through Evergreen. So this isn't one of the chatterbaits that Z-Man's making. Evergreen's actually making this. So we have to get it from them, and they're over in Japan. So we have to get it from them over there. So by the time they're done making these things, there's a lot of cost involved in their manufacturing. And then by the time it's all packaged and sent over to us, it's a very, very expensive bait. And overall, it's actually our lowest margin item in our lineup. The $15.99 price point that we put on there was basically as low as we could get it, and still be able to make some type of profit margin on there. And looking back, we probably could have started it at $20 and people would have paid for it. But
it is crazy, because I was skeptical
or not
too.
To bring this bait in, it was just, is anybody actually going to spend $15 on a chatterbait? And we debated it for quite a bit in the office. It's like, I don't think so, but we'll try it. We'll see what happens. And of course, we launched it at the Classic when it was in Houston, and I mean, they were gone right after that. So there was absolutely no hesitation, and that answered our question, and we've been chasing it ever since. I mean, it's hard to keep up with it because they're so popular right now, and the factory has very limited capacity that they can do. I mean, we've got them maxed out. They're making them as fast as we can get them. We just got another shipment of them in this week, and it's every single one of those is already going out the door.
Well, it's definitely a great time to branch out and try some of the other models, because while I'm a firm believer in the jackhammer, especially in a river situation, I like the Project Z. I throw it a lot for redfish, and I've caught a lot of river fish on it.
Right.
And I think there's a time and place for each one, which is why I wanted to have you on, because for me, this is education as well, because I look at it and I'm like, I don't know which one to throw. And I think I ordered a jackhammer just because I'm like, I wanted to see what all the fuss was about. I can't believe that this bait's that expensive, but I'm going to throw it. Like second or third cast, you catch a fish on it, and you're like, all right, well, I'm going to throw this again. And, when you and I were fishing, I was, in that situation, I was throwing the Project Z in the same colors. And I just wasn't getting bit. I found the one last jackhammer that had fell to the bottom of my tackle box, and it felt like Christmas. And of course, I caught a fish, and it was a very nice, river bass, like right there in front of you. But
I don't remember that.
Oh yeah, you remember. I think I called my shot and everything. It was perfect. One of those. In my mind, it was probably a lot better than it really was. But it is a great time to like branch out and try those different baits. And Tyler says, "What about the Freedom?" And I don't want to forget about that one. So we'll definitely, because you have a couple of different options.
We'll go back. We'll do the Freedom right now. So the Freedom, this guy right here. So this is the Chatterbait Freedom, and this is called that because we partnered with Freedom Tackle Company. They're great guys to work with, and they've got a really cool system of being able to change out your hook quickly. Where, and I'll show you that here in a second. So there's the Freedom. So you can see it's got a swivel head design, and they've got this quick change system. So if you don't want to use this hook, you can just simply untwist it from the locking mechanism that's in there, and it'll come right off, and you can change it to a different hook if you want. The original premise behind this one was coming up with some type of a swing head design, but one that you could fish weedless. So this one actually has a wide gap hook on the back of it. So this one is one that you can rig up weedless. And this is an interesting thing. I want to show you this because this is something that I talk a lot about when I talk about the different chatterbaits. The Freedom is very unique in the fact that it's designed as a cover bait. And I say that because in open water, I want you to keep in mind that you would be fishing this, basically fishing a Texas rigged plastic on the back of a reaction bait. All right. So you have two different types of takes with a fish. You have an open water take, and then you have a cover take. They're two very, very different takes. Your heavy cover take, when a fish grabs something in the cover, typically what they'll do is they'll come up and they'll grab it, hold on to it, and take it back down with them. Now, when you're in open water, it's a completely different situation. In open water, fish tend to slap at it, slash at it, run, move. They're running after it. They're chasing after it. They tend to knock it around. So when you have a Texas rigged plastic back here, you're not always going to get that reaction bite in open water. So your hooking percentage in open water with this particular setup right here is not going to be as good as what it would be if you were throwing going to be a different hookup percentage. And to kind of give you active on that, again, I was in the Delta throw this, and I tied it on because we were in a section just super, super thick grass. I mean, just you couldn't get anything through it. So I decided to try the Freedom, and I got one on my first cast on it and that heavy stuff. And then I made like 4 more casts and landed 4 more fish. And then I came to a patch of tules where I got 3 more fish out of the middle part of those tules. And the water is very, very clear. So I get to see everything that's going on. And what I saw was the last fish, though, it came out of the cover. It chased the bait out. And I watched him. So as soon as he got out of the cover, he took a swipe at it and didn't get the whole thing. And I didn't get a hook in him. And that illustrated to me right there the big difference between that open water take and that heavy water and that heavy cover take. They're two totally different types of strikes. So, so for me, the Freedom was a very situational chatterbait. It's the one I'm going to throw into slop. It's the one I'm going to throw when I know I can get it through anything, and this was before we had the Project Z weedless, which is more my go-to now if I want to throw in a weedless situation or a timber situation. I tend to go with that. But the Freedom has been very, very effective at pulling fish out of cover situations, just because essentially you've got this Texas rig trailer on there, that razor shad, and you've got a weedless setup. And the cool thing about it's got that swing head design, so the body moves a lot on this thing. So it's one of those things that's going to have a lot of action. The only thing is with this, it tends to ride up a little bit, so you have to slow your presentation down. You can't burn this one. It'll come right to the top if you do, so you have to slow it down.
I think that's also a good point, because for me, in a moving water situation where I've got a lot of current, I don't find that to be the chatterbait that I would go to either. Because of that reason. A lot of times you've got the current, and you're reeling against the current, so it's making that bait move differently and react differently. And so if it's going to do that, then essentially you're like speeding up, the retrieval sometimes if you're going against the current, and then if you're going with it, it's hard to reel it slow enough probably, because it's trying to come to you, which can kind of make it wrap around. So, Mark says, didn't check the time zone, missed it again. It's okay, Mark. It lives on Facebook and on YouTube, so you can always go back and rewatch these, and I'm going to hopefully have them on for a podcast.
Those who are ready will not get fruit cup. There you
go. Yeah. Joshua has a good question. Have you ever considered launching a wide gap style hook version of the jackhammer?
No, we haven't. And the main reason is the reason I just covered, because of the open water versus cover situation. A wide gap style hook, when you Texas rig a bait on that, you're not going to get as many hookups with that in open water as what you're going to get out of the cover. They're going to miss far more of those. You want that exposed hook on there. That's really important. That's the reason that when Brett Hite designed that, he had an opportunity to design the best bladed jig on the planet, because he wanted it for him, and he's probably the best chatterbait fisherman out there. So when he decided to do that, he looked carefully at a lot of hook options and stuff, but he wanted that Gamakatsu flipping hook because of the open hook and the O'Shaughnessy bend on it. That's what he was really fond of, were those two features. Because you have to have that exposed hook on a reaction bait. That's really important. You want to have an exposed point to get anything that's slashing and, trying to slap at the bait. You want to be able to do that.
Yeah. Mark says, don't change it. It's good the way it is. So real quick, we are approaching our hour window here, and we could talk fishing all day, especially you and I. But last time we were out on the water, I got to see it kind of in person, and I'm always kind of the skeptic of, I don't want to just, order baits and then like try them, and if you get your confidence bait, and you're like, let's just keep going back to that. It's like if you got your honey hole spot, you're going to keep going to, and sometimes you don't try new things. But getting to see this bait underwater and how it reacted and hunted, and we can explain what we're talking about when we say that.
That's the CFL. Yep.
You don't even have it in the box. So.
Yeah, get another package. It's an empty box. This is the stealth model. Yeah.
I don't think they're going to hit that. But here's a picture of it as well. So it's like a shaky head.
It's the cool thing about this, and this is actually kind of becoming one of my favorite little baits right now. I love the vibration on this thing, but here's the biggest feature with this. It stays down no matter how fast you retrieve this bait. It will not ride up. You can't make it ride up. Where you throw it as far as you can, the second it hits the water, reel as fast as you can, so you can get it to break the surface, and you just can't do it. It will stay down with this head design. So it has the same Freedom Tackle technology inside, so you can quick change the hook out, but it's a football head, and it's made out of zinc and not lead. And also the blade is super close to it. So when it's hitting that zinc, it's making a completely different sound than what it does if it's hitting a lead head. So the vibration, again, you get this nice tight vibration, lots of contact with the head on movement here, and a swing action design. So all of that combined with the fact that it stays down, I'm really starting to fall in love with this thing. You feel it immediately. There's never any resistance. I don't have to give it a pop to get it started. It's just a really effective design. It really is. And like a lot of football heads are really effective at coming through rocky areas and boulders. And that's one of the things that a football jig was originally designed for, was fishing through rocks. And so when you're dealing with rocky ledges and deeper areas or things like that, that's really where this bait's going to shine. You want to drop it off a ledge and keep it down in that strike zone. It's going to stay there. It's not going to come out of that strike zone at all.
That's what I noticed. It definitely has that, digging action where it's like head down and just and searching out every little crevice. It really deflects nicely too. When we were, filming that video, you could really see it. And I'm sure that video is up at, I know I saw it posted on Z-Man's Instagram, so I know you can scroll back there in the Facebook page and see that. But you guys do a great job of showing all the different actions out there on your website and everything. And so I'm excited about this one. I've got a few of these on order as well to just get out there in a river situation where I really want it to stay down in the heavy current and kind of, because what you see on the surface of the river is not always what's going on underneath the water,
Absolutely.
underneath the surface. You may have a boulder that's holding fish behind it and has an eddy, but that eddy's hidden because it's underneath the surface. So even if you're reading the top, if you're in a section with some deeper boulders and some deeper cuts, I really feel like this is going to be a great bait to like get down in there where the fish are at, and like you said, kind of hold that area. So I'm definitely excited about that. Real quick, I just want to recap trailer options kind of for all of these. I know the razor shad is going to work on most any of these baits. Diesel minnows, and you've got different sizes of those now.
Shad, you got the diesel minnow. The diesel minnow, I use that when I'm really wanting extra vibration or extra action out of the bait. Because the razor shad itself doesn't have a lot of action itself. It's really more about, creating an effective bait fish profile with that razor shad underneath the body of that and underneath the skirt.
Yep.
The tail, even though it's got these slits in it here, it really doesn't move a whole lot. It just kind of sits there and just quivers, really is what it does behind the chatterbait. There's so much water disruption in front that it's not really getting to this and making it move back and forth a lot.
It really just kind of follows the natural action of the chatterbait.
Yeah, it does. It's going to follow the bait. When I want more thumping action, that's when I go to the diesel minnow, because that's going to give me a lot more kicking action behind the bait. So especially like if I'm in dirtier water, I definitely put a diesel minnow on the back every single time, because I want every bit of additional action that I can get out of it. Any little bit extra vibration, movement, every little bit helps when that water gets dirty. So I always go with that. And then the other option that you do have is you do have the option of, I'm sitting here, the Turbo Craw is a fantastic chatterbait trailer, because you've got those little twin claws behind it. So, and I use that a lot on any of the more natural colored chatterbaits, and any of the craw patterns, the dark green pumpkins, things like that. I always go with a Turbo Craw trailer behind that. And then especially if you are going to fish it as a jig on the bottom and throw it down on the bottom, rip it up a little bit, that's a perfect little trailer for that. Because then when that chatterbait does hit the bottom and the skirt separates, that little Turbo Craw just stands right up, and he's just right up there moving around like that. So very effective. So those are really, the three main ones, the razor shad, the diesel minnow, and the Turbo Craw really are three main trailers that we use on the chatterbaits most of the time.
And I would say, don't be afraid, if you want to step it up, like you're going to the 1 ounce size and you're in saltwater, for example. I know Brooks was really successful on, I think he was throwing a jackhammer in the 1 ounce or even bigger size. And he was throwing the swimmers on there, which is like a 6-inch.
Yeah.
Right. And I think you could do the 5 or even the 7, inch diesel minnows that you have out now, if you really want to step that profile up, because that's, again, it's such a versatile bait and it's going to work in a lot of situations. So if you're throwing it in a big school of bull reds, don't be afraid to up that size, because they'll eat it. And even, bass will eat huge,
well, and one other trailer too that kind of gets overlooked sometimes is the scented paddlers, because it has it's not the heavy kicking action the diesel minnow has. It's more of a subtle kicking action, but it does have a kicking action to it, and it's scented. So that's one of the things that a lot of guys are throwing in scented paddlers on the back of the chatterbaits for saltwater there.
Yeah, I've definitely done that.
You had a question on here. One of the guys was asking about the tungsten jackhammer, if we were going to sell that.
Oh, yeah, I see that. Good call.
Yeah. So here's the thing with the tungsten one. We don't have any plans to sell it here in the U.S. right now. And primarily because you think the regular one's expensive now, that one's going to be even more expensive. And really all you're getting is a tungsten resin over a lead head. You're not gaining anything. So you're still getting a 3/8 ounce chatterbait. The difference is it's got a tungsten resin on it instead. So it's really not giving you the true tungsten advantages, of being able to get more weight with a smaller profile. Head shape's going to be the same size, and it's still going to be 3/8 of an ounce or a half an ounce. And none of that's going to change. And the vibration is going to be pretty much the same as it is now. It just has a tungsten resin over the top. So, in our minds, we looked at that and we just really didn't feel like it was worth the added expense to bring that in. We would rather expand we are expanding the line of jackhammers. We'll have some announcements coming probably in about the next month or so. Yeah. So we are going to expand. We're just not going to do the tungsten version of it right now.
Yeah.
But we have some really cool stuff coming out for it, for sure.
Well, I definitely recommend people trying out
the as far as the colors go, that Fire Craw was a huge hit. So we're actually bringing Fire Craw out in the Elite Series and in the originals as well.
Nice. So those will be a little easier to find then. So
Probably,
for sure, definitely try, don't be afraid to talking to the audience here. Don't be afraid to step out of your comfort zone and try some of these other baits. I'm doing that. I'm excited about the CFL. I'm very excited to try the Elites, just because I won't cry as much when I lose one. But they're all going to, and Camille says with no ICAST, there'll be some announcements. It's going to be interesting time of year when we're normally used to somebody walking around ICAST, with the camera showing the world what products are coming. I feel like each company now is going to kind of have their own version. Maybe I can get a release here on Tech Talkin, hint, but we'll see. That means you got to send it to me so I can personally show it. Height Delight. There's a lot of color options out there.
And Mark wanted to know what we're going to change about the jackhammer, so I really can't release that right now, but I think it's going to be a big hit. So
yeah, send me some money, Mark. I'll give you my PayPal later, and I don't know anything about it. I'm just making stuff up.
You don't, I haven't told you.
So Camille says, what's the plan for announcing since there is no ICAST?
Timing is going to still be about the same as far as announcing new products. There might be some previews that get sent out to some of our retailers and some of our distributors. I'd say in the next few weeks, we'll start, doing some basically what we call line reviews with some of our customers where we show them what we're going to be bringing out for next year.
Yeah.
As far as, the main press releases and everything going out to the public is still going to be timed around ICAST. So it's still going to be around that second week of July because ICAST is going to do a virtual show this year. And we're going to still time all of our releases around that because that's kind of what everybody anticipates and everybody sets their new product schedules around that. So we're not going to mess with that. We're still going to keep that going. And then a lot of the new products that we are going to announce this year probably won't be available until fall at this point. We have to plan way out in advance for a lot of this stuff.
Yeah. Well, it's super exciting time of the year to find out all the things that are coming out and start planning your fall fishing trips based on when you might be able to get certain products. Yeah. So, maybe you and I can do some testing on some bronze backs. Hopefully, hope to get back.
Release on that one, buddy.
Yeah, it's okay. I can do that. I can sign a release. Well, I really appreciate you coming on. I do have to cut us off. We already went like 7 or 8 minutes over. And I know there's probably other things scheduled on the Jackson page, but thanks so much for sharing all this information. If people want to find out more information, where would you say to go?
Go to zmanfishing.com. We've got all the information you need. We've got all the videos, rigging tips, everything. It's a huge resource right there. So I highly recommend it.
Perfect. I'll post your cell phone number up here in the comments as well.
Yeah, thanks.
And also a couple of pins on your favorite locations to throw these baits. And you should be ready to go.
There, that sounds great. Yeah, thanks.
All right, man. I'm gonna pull you down here. I appreciate you so much coming on again.
All right, thanks everybody for tuning in too. So don't forget to hit us up on Facebook and Instagram if you want. So
yeah, for sure. Give them a like and a follow. For sure. Thanks so much, Glenn. Thanks, guys, again for watching. Hopefully, you guys, bared with me. I'm not sure what the proper word is there. But you were here through the whole thing while I dealt with audio being weird and not having my awesome green screen in the background. Actually, this is a green screen. I just had somebody take a picture. Not for real. I'm at the R&D room, and there's some cool things happening here at Jackson for sure as we get back rocking and rolling with this. Be sure to go over to Z-Man and check out all their baits. They're awesome. I've been using them for years, and they make a lot of really awesome products, and they're a wealth of knowledge over there, so you can hit them up. Their customer service is great. It's one of those companies that seems really big, but in the sense that they're still a small, like family-oriented company, and everyone is just like, brother. And I don't know how else to explain it. It's just a great company to be a part of, and they make some awesome fish catching products. So definitely check them out. Be sure to like, subscribe, comment. Let me know what you guys would like to see in the future as we keep this show rolling, and we will see you next Tuesday. I will be making an announcement real soon on what that episode will be about. So stay tuned.